Hello, Mary.
Hello. Are we doing
Welcome.
ASMR?
We're doing some ASMR because people think I'm too. people
You're gonna
people
have a
think
dry
I'm
throat so quickly.
people think I'm too loud. I
You're
can't
passionate.
I can't be much louder. I can't go what am I, I'm not doing that anymore.
Yeah.
Um
Maybe we
well,
need to learn how to turn our gain down or something.
yeah, maybe.
Learn how microphones work. So
What
anyway,
what are we doing? What are we doing today, Mary?
today we are going to do the 1987 vampire film The Lost Boys, directed by none other than Joel Schumacher.
Woo!
Ooh, a classic. So this one stars Jason Patrick, Corey Haim, Diane Weiss, Kiefer Sutherland, Corey Feldman, Alex Winter. Just like a pretty good cast. I mean, I think that a lot of them this was pretty early in their career, but real solid cast of young actors for this one.
Absolutely. And a solid legacy as well, Mary,
Hmm.
impacting Buffy the Vampire Slayer, who, kind of raised me, as did this film. I discovered The Doors through this film.
Oh
Still,
yeah.
yeah, still listen to Cry Little Sister. Numerous bands and artists have covered that tune
Oh
over the
yeah.
years.
Like I
Um,
am partial to like the original, but a few of the covers are just great as well. Some of them from more problematic artists at this
yeah,
point, but
yes,
you know which one I mean. I know what you mean.
indeed, I do. We've done a little video on the channel actually on that
Hmm.
that guy. Yeah.
So yeah, but yeah, great film, great cast all around. Very young babyface Kiefer Sutherland, and this is one I grew up with this film. Of course, I'm sure you have seen it before, so.
Yeah, I also grew up on this film.
Hmm.
The year after I was born, it came out. And then just kind of, yeah, I saw it when I was a kid. I remember the twist at the end, spoiler alert, being like the first twist. I was like, "What?"
I still love that
Yeah,
ending. It makes me laugh every time.
I,
I love the character of the grandfather anyway. Like he just delights
Absolutely,
me.
absolutely, and I think we'll fast track one of the key questions, which is all favorite scene, because I think that you've kind of just segued to it. People talk about the Lost Boys and the various great bits of cinematography, the scenery, the aesthetic, of just the I'm trying to think of the best way to phrase it. It's just a cool vampire film. The cool vampire
Oh,
aesthetic, I think, was
yeah.
originated. Obviously, you had, Nosferatu and different things like that, but this was
I
like the
think it's a
first.
shift to sexier vampires.
Yeah,
And I think like I would have to check the timeline because I think there may have been some things flirting with that in the 70s and horror as well. But prior to this, a lot of what I think of with vampire films is, widow's peaks and like long opera capes and, not to say that Christopher Lee isn't sexy in his own way or anything like that, but it's a very different vibe than you get with these like, young leather-clad vampires and belly shirts and things like that.
indeed.
So, I definitely think that it has a huge impact going forward on, like you've said, like Buffy took a
Yeah,
lot of inspiration,
yeah,
especially the makeup effects played a huge
yeah.
role in that.
I think there's a really interesting fact that I want you to touch upon about the makeup again. We've done that with the last one as well, the last episode, which we got some real heat for. So thanks for that. But yeah, I think, there's a lot to be talked about there on the aesthetic of this film. Again, what I will call the first cool vampire film. It
Hmm.
was actually a bit of research from you. I think, was it Joel Schumacher said he said he decided to do the film because vampires are hot. They're the only erotic
Yeah,
monsters.
yeah, and I know on the internet there is certainly a subculture that would disagree with Schumacher on this, but yeah, the quote is vampires are hot. They're the only erotic monsters. Frankenstein is not hot. Now,
Yes,
um, I suspect that would get some pushback these days,
indeed
but
it would.
vampires do tend to be at the top of the hottie monster food chain, if we are being fair.
Indeed, we've touched on fan fiction on this podcast, and at the risk of controversy, there are numerous sites where you can go on and you can find Frankenstein-related content. I'm told. I don't know
Hmm.
about it, but I'm told you can find some rather interesting Frankenstein interacting with other monsters in various ways.
Oh,
He
knowing I believe there's going to be a Frankenstein film coming out that Guillermo del Toro is directing, so we might be in for a horny Frankenstein pretty soon anyway.
Excellent,
Um,
excellent. We're due a horny Frankenstein. One of the worst films I ever saw was a Frankenstein adaptation.
was it?
Oh God, it was so terrible. They're doing a musical adaptation, right, Mary? That's coming. That's in
Yeah,
development.
is to the best of my knowledge, it's supposed to be coming in spring of 2026, and I had not heard about this until I started doing research that they're going to be doing a musical adaptation, and I'm open to the idea of it because I think that music plays such an integral role in the original film. It kind of makes sense in a way. I'll just, I'd be curious to see the end results, I guess is what I would say for that.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. The film, just for reference, because we're talking about hopefully what will be a much better Frankenstein adaptation coming, is the 2015 Frankenstein with Xavier Samuel playing the Frankenstein's monster. It has a
Mm.
great cast: Carrie Ann Moss, who people remember from The Matrix, Danny Houston, Tony Todd. There's a good cast in there, but a terrible, very awkward, and maybe that was the point, but a very awkward Frankenstein adaptation, and that I do believe is the worst film I've ever seen. So stay away from that or don't. Is the message. So Mary, just wanted to come back to favorite scenes as well. Going back to what you talked about before, that ending. There's a lot of great cinematography, a lot of great aesthetic, as we've said,
Mm.
but that ending is fantastic. It's got the comedy, it's got the kind of ode to Hammer horror in the way that it's done. The grandpa, all the damn vampires. It's a great moment. What
Hmm.
that would be my favorite scene. Obviously, there'll be
Well, it's
numerous
just the
others.
the lighting in that scene just being the refrigerator light that then like goes out when he shuts the door too. Like
Yeah,
just a great way to fade out. I love that. I have a real soft spot for that scene with the oiled up saxophone man. And
yeah,
I know that's a favorite on the internet as well.
indeed, indeed.
Just
Yeah.
delightfully 80s thing.
Indeed, and I believe this film sort of really just captures the 80s aesthetic. I was thinking as well, there's a lot of things, obviously, we've talked about Buffy. I think Stranger Things takes a lot from the aesthetic and the vibe of,
Yeah, Stranger Things borrows very heavily from a lot of 80s source material because there's definitely a lot of like The Goonies, another Corey Feldman vehicle in there as well, and that sort of like group of kids adventuring thing. But I would definitely say that The Lost Boys plays a pretty big role in that as well as like just a lot of the 80s teen film genre in general, especially the more horror leaning.
yeah, absolutely. And again, in a classic that has inspired not only ourselves to become goths and talk about horror movies and dark movies and goth movies right here on this podcast. Sorry for being too loud. Um, but it has inspired and will continue to inspire legions of young children, kids,
Hmm.
adults. To be goths, and I think it's fantastic that it's just got such a reputation. What is your favorite fact that you dug up, Mary? Because there's quite a few.
Oh gosh.
Personally, I like the music related ones. Of course, there's
Hmm.
lots of music related Easter eggs
Oh yeah, I
in the
mean a lot
film.
of Easter eggs in the film in general, like a lot of nods to other vampire stories. Like Lucy's name is a nod to Dracula, of course, and Max is possibly a nod to Max Schreck, who was Nosferatu, the actor who played Nosferatu. So there's like a lot of like little things in there. I mean, as far as facts on this, I one of the ones that I thought was kind of just sweet because Kiefer Sutherland was very young during the making of this film, and when he went to have his prosthetic makeup done, he said, "Don't tell them I'm only 17. They think I'm 18" to the makeup artist. And I don't know, there's just something sort of adorable about that, like lying about your age
Yeah,
thing. Like I don't know, that just kind of like hit me in the feels a little bit.
yeah,
That was cute. Um,
absolutely.
because he is like I didn't, used to think about it when I was younger because I was younger too, but now it's like just noticing it's just how baby faced he really is, and like they're all very young in this, but um So I really enjoyed that. I find it interesting. There's sort of an online debate about Sam's character because there is that like Rob Lowe poster on his closet door, and he is very fashionable compared to the rest of the characters, where people wonder if it's maybe a nod to Sam being gay because Joel Schumacher, it was himself as an openly gay man as well. But it seems like Schumacher has never really confirmed or denied this from what I can see. So he just kind of seems to be leaving it open to interpretation.
Yeah, yeah, which I think
But
is great. Yeah.
yeah, I think that's sort of fun as it allows people to, sort of see what they want to see in that. And then the other thing I thought was interesting was I didn't notice this when I was a kid because, the old CRT TVs didn't have the definition, but there's a lot of glitter in the blood in the film to make it shinier. So it's like this time when I was watching it in a much higher definition, I noticed when they come out of that scene in the cave, and they're just like, especially the Frog Brothers are just coated in glitter. And I kind of had a moment of, wait a minute, why are they covered in glitter? But I remember it was because of how the special effects are. I think that was just after they'd gotten hit with so much fake blood already. So I thought that was like sort of interesting that that's how they made the blood look extra shiny in that film.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
really interesting aesthetic choice, and we tend to have
mm.
many themes. No snow this time, but some
No.
glitter, some glitter. We've talked about glitter many times. Most of
Oh
our
yeah.
films have glitter in them.
Yes,
Um,
glitter and snow seem to be more goth than I had originally assumed they were.
yeah, yeah, fake
But this one
blood.
being set in California, kind of not a lot of snow there, I don't think.
No, no, and once again, I think it really captures that. Just to repeat briefly, that sort of 80s cool
Hmm.
California. Very very much a um very much a kind of aesthetic that a lot of bands
Hmm.
and artists, just to go back to that as well, used going forward. I think, the Cult, the Sisters of Mercy, I'm not saying they were directly tied, of course, to this film at all, but certainly that sort of leather clad.
That definitely was the trend at the time. I
Yeah,
mean, and there's crossover with it's like, there's a lot of goth bands dressing that way, but there's definitely some stylistic crossover with even like hair metal bands had like,
absolutely.
the long, like especially curly hair and like lots of lace and things. One thing that makes it tricky because of the 80s fashion is I realized it's hard to gauge how old the vampires are because you can't use how they're dressed as a guide. Because people in the 80s did just kind of, guys in bands and stuff dressed like Civil War soldiers anyway. It's like, are they, an old vampire or are they just dressed like Adam Ant is kind of one of those things that you
Yeah,
can't parse as easily in that
yeah,
era.
no, no.
So, that is something I found interesting because like I hadn't realized just watching it, but there's an implication that David is a lot older than the other
Yes.
vampires, as I always thought he was just sort of dropping like Snapple facts about that place where they hang out and and reading online. I guess it's more implied that he was around when that
Yeah,
hotel, that they're
yeah.
talking about like was broken up in the earthquake. So things that even I missed having watched it like so many times over the course of my life.
Yeah,
But
absolutely. Which is why we go back and do these things,
mhm,
to find these facts. And one more theme that we seem to be coming back to on this podcast is Jim Carrey in odd
mhm.
filmic roles. My one of my
Yeah.
weird facts is that I didn't even know he once played a vampire in Once Bitten in 1985, and he was down for the role
So
of
have
David.
you never seen Once Bitten?
No.
So it's I was being honestly lazy and just sort of grabbed the fact, but when I went back and reread it, I was thinking about because I had it's been a long time, but in Once Bitten, he I don't think ever actually fully transforms into a vampire because his character is more the like somewhat willing victim of a vampire in that film. And again, it's been a while since I saw it, so like I apologize for any probably somewhat inaccurate spoilers in there. But yeah, he was considered for the role of David, which is very strange to me because I don't think of Jim Carrey as a sinister vampire, you know what I mean? And I think this would be very early in his career, so I'm assuming the issue as much as anything is Hollywood had not figured out what to do with Jim Carrey yet. Um,
Yeah,
like
quite
like
not.
his career doesn't really take off, at least in my awareness, until like a few years after this as well. He'd been in some things, but I feel like it was really around the time of like Ace Ventura, those films that he really started to take off.
Really? Sorry.
Oh, God.
Uh,
Just yeah, like picture that, but vampire. I don't know. And I guess that's, that's why he didn't get the part. But
Maybe not. Yeah. Well, I know what I'm watching tonight. Mary, before we wind up, I just want to ask the audience, as I said, just want to say thank you for the engagement. Whether you love or hate what we do, please do let us know if we've missed anything today, any facts that you want that you need to be known. Please stick them in the comments. Tell
there's
us you
definitely a lot more to this film than what we're able to cover in this, you know, little
Yeah.
podcast.
Yeah. Tell us your favorite scenes, tell us your favorite fact. Give it to us, and we'll maybe do another post about it or something along those lines. But yeah, Mary, anything to add that we've missed before we finish up today? And what are we doing next?
Okay. I mean, I think we kind of covered, in broad strokes, most of what needed to be covered on this film. So, I can't think of anything to add. In terms of what's coming up next, I was thinking that maybe we'd dip back a little bit further to a folk horror classic from the 70s and do the 1973 version of The Wicker Man, which has Christopher Lee in it. Because
Cool.
that is a classic of English folk horror, and I feel like we should probably do it at some point.
Sounds good. Let's do it. Let's do it. Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for your time, Mary. It's always a pleasure to catch up with you. Pleasure to revisit a classic film with an incredible soundtrack. To our audience, thank you for bearing with us. Please do stick some comments in the comment box. We really need an outro, don't we? Something to
Yeah,
say. Keep it spooky, we came
yeah,
up with, didn't we?
yeah,
Keep
yeah.
it spooky.
So yeah, just keep it spooky.
Keep it spooky, everybody. Bye.
Bye.